Welcome to another episode of Disruptive Leaders in Tech. Today I am joined by Swati Sharma, Head of Data Science for Brillio. Is it Brillio Company or Brillio?
Brillio.
Brillio. And you're part of Bain Capital
Yes.
Company, or you are a Bain Capital Company.
So it is a Bain Capital company. They own a good chunk of the company. So we have their support and backing in everything we do.
Also, were you guys acquired by Bain?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
And then just to go, I guess you and I have spoken about this before, but Bain, Brillio are more of the consultative side of the business.
Correct. So it started off as software consulting, like an IT consulting, and it's grown considerably. And there are multiple offices all over the world.
Yeah. And you're obviously based out of the New York one here.
Yes.
Awesome. And then, like I just sort of pre-warned you, and as I'm sure people have seen in previous episodes, I start off every episode with the same question to leaders. The reason for the question is, it's not often you get a chance to sit down with a head of data science, a chief data officer, senior executives within the tech industry. So I think it should be valuable. I love hearing the answer, but I think it's valuable for maybe your peers to hear, people on their journey within their data career or technology career, and then even just anyone getting started out. It could be be worth that. So the question obviously is, you today, where you're at in your career now, if you could go back to your day one self, your first day on the job in your particular career field, is there one sort of piece of advice that stands out to you that you would go back and give yourself, or if you had the opportunity to do so, what would that be?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I never thought of that, but looking back, I would definitely advise to kind of not fret so much about the technical work and try to make a little more effort to socialize and network and learn from adjacent groups like data engineering or the business management, and get their take on how data would interact with whatever they need to do, rather than just getting so caught up with my technical work. And I think it's something that I've definitely evolved into, and I've gotten very comfortable doing it now. But it really enriches your work when you step out of your little cubicle. And I think I'm so used to being a lone worker that the transition to working like a partnership with others has been really enriching.
And I'm sure your job today now involves a lot of interaction and rapport building, whether it's internally, externally, and learning how to articulate yourself, because it sounds like you also traditionally are a very technical person, and I speak on a daily basis with people in the field about this, but like there's a difference between being like the most technical person in the world versus someone that can actually network, articulate themselves, and then also relay that technical information to the business, so the business understands it and makes sense to them. So your answer's great actually, because it kind of touches on most of the topics we're looking to speak to each other about today. But I think one of the big things to kind of leap it into from that answer would be the career paths within data, but also I think you just touched on as well, like, and building a personal brand, because I think that, like you say, a lot of people can get bogged down into I want to be the best hands-on technical person in the world. I don't need the team around me. I'm just going to go at it and I'll hand it off to whoever I need to hand it off, and we'll collab that way. Whereas I think more and more the industry is moving towards technology is obviously progressing, and also so is the talent. So what was an amazing sort of skill set a few years ago, now maybe loads of people can do that and stuff. So being able to separate yourselves from the pack in that way is more and more important than ever. So how has your sort of career path gone? What has been your journey? Like, where did you start out, and how did you get yourself to kind of where you are today? Because I'm sure it sounds like you didn't start off with really caring about much of a personal brand within the industry, but that's something you realised at some point is important, and you wanted to apply it to your own career. So yeah, how did that start, and like where did that mindset shift, and where did you realise it was important to kind of generate that brand?
So I mean, like I said, I started off as extremely technical, and I prided myself on having the technical power to go and build anything, to understand anything. And I was given, a lot of encouragement, a lot of room to grow. I had great managers, from the get-go. And I have always found myself in a situation where I was the one and only data scientist.
Yeah.
And, given a lot of limelight in that way. But I never really understood building a brand. I thought it was just you do good work, you make the models, you make it work, and that's it. I don't need to deal with it anymore. I move on to the next one, and that's it. I call it a day. And I never understood it until I was job hunting between, I think, my first and second data science roles.
Yeah.
And I was really itching for something a little more exciting. I felt like I was in a safe environment. I wanted to take it up a notch and do, something a little different.
Work on different projects, work
on different
fields.
projects, and be in a more fast-paced environment. I felt where I was at, it was a great place to build a career, but I really wanted to go a lot faster and do more exciting projects where data science was the center of everything rather than just kind of an accessory. So I interviewed, and I was really set on this one consulting firm, one of the big four. And I had prepped. I felt I looked good on paper. I went and I aced the interviews. There was multiple rounds of interviews. Went to the on-site, aced that. Everyone loved me. Met with the senior partner, and I felt it was a good connection with him as well. But at the time, it was more about, you ask me the question and I will tell you the answer. What is 1 + 1? It's 2. What is 2 + 2? And it was just back and forth like that. And he just stopped me. He's like, you really need to build your personal brand. And I was so devastated because I didn't get the offer. But what I walked away was the most valuable piece of information anybody has given me in my career. And I didn't understand and appreciate it back then. It was only when I got my next role after that setback, and I was put in a very, very different, aggressive environment. I had to really rise to that level. And it was also to a very non-technical crowd. They did not know, what was going in my mind, so I had to figure out how to get what's in my mind understood to them in a very simple, friendly manner, so they don't get intimidated, and we can do good work.
It's probably quite tough to hear that in the moment. Like, I think it's important for people to have those rare moments in their career where it really does. I don't know if humble's the right word, but it really kind of knocks you back a couple of paces, but then it lets you escalate. It's something you kind of needed to hear, whether you realised you needed to hear it or not. Like, and sometimes there's no malice in it whatsoever, but it still can be tough to hear.
It was bitter medicine, and I'm very grateful. In fact, I've connected with him on LinkedIn, and I've thanked him profusely. Like, you had a big hand, and I really understand and appreciate what you told me. And from that point on, I really felt that, I'm going to do the work very sincerely. That is just how I am. If I'm committing to something, I will go all out to do it. But aside from that, I feel communicating is what builds the brand and differentiates you from somebody else who also may look good on paper. but it should be, I think I read a quote by Bezos that, what is personal brand? It's when you leave the room and people are still talking about you. And that's what I wanted, that, I go all out with everything. I create all these, I collect all these experiences professionally to stretch me in all different directions and just never say no to an opportunity. And now I'm at a point where, people appreciate the work I've done and they want to hear how I can help them out, what I have to say on things. So I also advocate that to, my students or, those that report to me, that creating your brand is the most important thing as a data scientist. Anybody can be smart. There's no shortage of smart data scientists, but there's a reason why somebody may get a job and somebody may not, or somebody may get, some opportunity or project by how they articulate. And it's more about understanding others rather than talking about yourself.
And knowing your audience in the moment, right? Like how you interact with one person within the business or externally, because you obviously interact with a lot of different clients and things like that, so I think reading the room and understanding your audience is probably essential. And it's a skill set as well, right, that you've probably honed in on quite a lot in your career.
I mean, I have a PhD in electrical engineering, and we don't pride ourselves on being the most social, or we tend to be in our minds more. So it was a lot of experiences that I really wanted to kind of get me to the point where I'm comfortable talking to others, and
of course
they can understand me and I can understand them.
And I think one of the things you said, I mean, from the Bezos quote, is your brand can be positive and negative as well, right? So the brand is people talking about you once you leave the room, and then you also want to make sure that it's in an impressed, positive way and things like that. Whereas I think sometimes people neglect their focus on their own brand so much that they're still building a brand, but it's not the one that you quite want.
It's about offering a service. I mean, you're selling your skill set, but it's about catering to others. So how well can you do that, and can you do it in a more unique way than somebody else, and can you really get to the heart of that person or their problem or whatever it is, connect with them.
And I guess I want to take the opportunity, because you're obviously, you're head of data science, you're a senior leader within the technology industry. The females within the technology industry is so represented. I feel like it's definitely trending in the right direction, and the percentage is probably rising. I'm pretty certain it is rising, but being in a position that you're in, and you've probably gone through it at a time where you said you were the only data scientist on the team sometimes, but definitely maybe the only female person within a technology room or meeting. Have you noticed that that's changed a lot more? You're starting to see a lot more female representatives within the technology industry, and do you find that you get people reaching out to you maybe for some more advice to how can they become a female leader within the industry and things? Because obviously it's not all about that, and it's not really a discussion where it's like should be this massive thing or anything like that, but I think just because of the way that the percentage and the representation is, do you find that you get do you see yourself as a role model, or do people treat you as a sort of inspiration? Have you been approached for advice on how to become a leader within the technology industry, as a female that isn't seeing the same sort of faces around the room?
I do get a lot of females who approach me, how did we get to where you're at? What did you do? How was it like? How did you handle this situation? But interestingly, at Brillio, there's a lot of female leaders, probably in the data science, there's probably more than males, which is, I understand it's a rarity. But that being said, I personally, I don't, it's not like, gender should be a plus or minus.
Yeah.
I think it's all about the mind and the heart,
Yeah.
and how organic you are in communicating your work. And I think it tends to get a little muddied. I think, first of all, if women are willing to put in the work, and I'm not saying that it's more or less work, but they need to roll up their sleeves,
Yeah.
and really try to, push ahead from that. I don't feel that there's, a ceiling there. It's only as far as you want to go. And if you feel that you're being blocked at a certain place, I have had situations where I probably intimidated the hiring manager because I was female and, was confident of my work.
Yeah.
And it was a challenging environment, I do have to say.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it really pushed my growth on how to build my brand, how to communicate, how to get ahead, and give you that strength to push forward. So I wouldn't take it as a failure if you do, come across a situation like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the time, I was probably in tears, like, this is not fair. But, you just have to remove yourself from that situation, look for a better opportunity.
Yeah.
It's all in your hands. If you're willing to take control and not be the victim, you're the one driving your career. So you have to just, go around things. And, you cannot control how other people react to you, but you can definitely do your best.
Yeah, awesome. Follow on from kind of what you've just said there, then I think the more and more, and I guess this is within any industry, and it's not just sort of in the female domain, I guess it's any sort of underrepresented members of the population, the more and more you see it and interact and have those role models, like I would say that you probably are like a role model, you just by pure like default to people who are trying to get to where you are, and that's for like anyone along their sort of data journey, I would say. But yeah, I'm sure when you started, there wasn't that as many sort of leaders at the top, and it's amazing to see companies like Brillio, where most of the executive leadership at the moment sounds like they are female leaders.
Yeah, in the data science. Yeah, I didn't see that, but I didn't pay attention.
Yeah.
I think because I've been in electrical engineering, which is male dominated.
Yeah.
So I was already fine with being part of the minority, and it didn't really affect me either way. It just told me, I should not take it as a negative. Just I'm no different from a male counterpart. I can do the same work. So it's just about finding the right support system and the right managers who really encourage you to grow.
I think it's a phenomenal mindset as well to have, and like it shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, everybody just wants the best person for the job.
Sure.
And yeah, I think the more and more underrepresented members of the population are doing those degrees, doing those masters, doing those PhDs within those quantitative fields, then it's not like there should be a ceiling. Yes. There's more numbers of you now, so there's going to be more. Yeah. And it should balance out.
It makes it less intimidating.
Yeah, exactly.
I do get it. I do understand how it can be.
Yeah.
It can be intimidating.
Yeah. And then, so you've been through that whole career journey. You've been through the sort of, I guess, the growth of the personal brand. You've come from that technical person. I guess when you combine the two of those, next steps is leadership. And how long have you been that sort of leader? And
say almost 2 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And now running a sort of data science function within Brillio.
Yeah, for the US market.
For the US side. So one of those things I think is you're interacting with not just other executives, not just other external leaders, because obviously you're in a consulting space, you are dealing with probably senior executives within the clients and things, but also within your own team. I'm sure when you're hiring, you're looking to hire super highly intelligent people that can also follow in your footsteps and contribute and help that team grow and help the business grow. how do you approach that in terms of sometimes you might be managing someone that's a technical genius and has done things that you never did in your career, or sometimes they might have a certain skill set where they bring that value to the table that supports you versus goes against you or anything like that. So like, how do you manage that when you've got people on the team that bring a very high level performance in their specific skill set?
Yeah, so I think first you yourself have to kind of have some experience in all different areas and stretched in different directions where you can really discern other people's qualities and the depth and breadth of it. So I feel that I can do that, and I do see with certain individuals they have like a beautiful mind. Like I'm just their work is just beautiful. And there's some where they kind of struggle, but they do well in other areas. And then there's folks who probably neither here nor there and need a little bit of guidance.
Which ones do you say are tougher to manage? Like someone who's maybe super talented that might overstep the mark sometimes, maybe, or someone that's a bit kind of like you said struggle sometimes, and you're trying to like nurture them along. Like
I would actually say the hardest are the ones who I feel have like the most beautiful minds and do the beautiful work, because the nature of our work is it's multidimensional. You need to also communicate it appropriately to the client and navigate things, and oftentimes those folks they think in their head, and they may not know or have that full level of empathy where they can judge the repercussions of what they say, and this is a consulting world, so you need to be always on your game and, and knowing how to communicate things. So it is you do have to guide them and mentor them and try. What I usually do is I have them do a lot of speaking exercises within the group, and we all bombard them with questions so they kind of get comfortable with answering things that make them nervous, and how to communicate verbally, through writing, through emails, anything. So you do need to give them that training a little bit.
Because you don't want to knock them down, or you don't want to hold them back, because their skill set's their skill set, and then other things can be taught. So it sounds like you're kind of allowing them to operate within where they are comfortable, but then providing that extra element, especially as from a consulting perspective. And I think it's probably important for a lot of the listeners out there who are within the data or technology field to know as well, like you're also doing it from a perspective you're in a consultancy, you're dealing with external clients and things like that. But I would argue as well, I'm sure you might agree, that no matter what industry you're in, whether it's internal as well, you've always got stakeholders, and you've always got like quote unquote clients internally. They're just not outside the brand anymore. It's the CTO. I need budget for this. It's whatever. I guess it could be you guys working on the software side, the machine learning side, the data engineering side, or whatever it may be. And I guess the flip side to the coin of that, the question on the flip side of that coin is, how do you attract the talent that are obviously got those beautiful minds, and how do you retain those the talent around that onto the team? Because I've been waiting for this topic to come up for 4 episodes now, because no one wants to talk about recruitment and stuff, but obviously we are within that field, so we're speaking to people on a daily basis. We hear and we see the reasons why people are looking for that next step. You even talked to at the beginning of this podcast about when you were younger, you wanted more challenging, fast-paced new projects. Like everybody is hungry within this field, and they want to be working on more exciting and different types of projects that they've not really worked on. So when you might have headhunters, other companies reaching out to people on your team, like, is there anything you do actively around like retaining the talent? And is there anything you do to attract the talent and get them out of other companies because you know they're extremely talented?
So for retaining the talent, I spend a lot of time, and I do advocate. In fact, today itself, I had a group session where I was talking about personal branding and trying to teach them all the things that I've learned along my journey, um, because I didn't have anybody guiding me or giving me their experiences until that one senior partner who was so graciously gave me that advice. So I feel that it's my responsibility to help them grow and retain them. And definitely, if maybe they don't know a certain aspect of data science, I will go in and give them mini classes as to how to do it, because I like to do the internal research as well to build the IP, and it keeps your mind active, and we have things to offer to clients. So it's a great way of enriching my team. Now, to attract good talent, I think it's important to know the basics of machine learning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really get impressed if somebody's throwing me something that they Googled, like some esoteric algorithm which I may not have heard of myself. And I'm thinking, maybe I don't know this, but I want them to come in knowing the basics and be solid in the basics. And I understand that data science is a journey. It's not something that you really come in on day one comfortable with everything.
No,
you have to play with data to really understand the nuances. But I also want them to be motivated. They may not be polished in everything. They may not be the most skilled data scientists, but those things they can learn. But what I cannot teach somebody is motivation. I need them to have an interest in their career, invest the time in themselves. And, I will help them out with the resources in getting them to where they need to be. But I think that's the key thing that I look in candidates is how motivated they are.
Yeah, that hunger. And I think, I can't remember who said it now, but on one of the previous episodes, I think it might have been Nate, but talk about it's data science. It is a science. So most of the work, I think this is what Nate said. Most of the work is it's a failed sort of test or project to go in the right direction. It's almost like you're trying to get to sort of the right answer. And
you learn from your failures.
So you learn from your failures. So being hungry in that environment, I imagine, is essential, because if you're learning from your failures constantly, I might be wrong here, but I'm sure that could probably be frustrating and demoralizing sometimes. But I guess if you saw it from another perspective, the exciting part is every time you fail, you're one step closer to finding the one that's not going to fail.
But for that, I think you need to be in the right environment, like with the right manager, mentors, who have that maturity to see that it's not a roadblock. A failure is not, the end. It's actually the start of the next part of their journey. But I also feel that data science is, of course, a science. I mean, I'm very into, data scientists having that quantitative, logical mindset with a good mathematical backing. Like, I don't want them to just code things and just do things at surface level. But I also think it's part art. There's a whole creative aspect to it, which I don't feel that people talk much about, but maybe it's just to me. I look at things, a little uniquely. And to me, it's about crafting the solution, and these are your tools. So how do you create this piece of art to give you whatever output or information that you want?
And I guess when it does come to the time where you need to find that talent, like, how do you typically go about doing that? Are you using your own internal networks? Obviously, it's something you talked about already. You like to build your internal brand, which probably helps on LinkedIn, and you interact with a lot of people along the way. Does the agency perspective that we get a lot of insight into, because It's the only way we kind of work with our clients. Internal talent teams are usually at the disposal of hiring managers like yourself. Is there a preferred method that you've gone down that path, or like where would you start with your sort of search there?
So we do multiple things. I do get a lot of individuals who message me on LinkedIn.
Like candidates.
Yeah, candidates, and I will look through all of them, but it's as if they're all like kind of carbon copies of each other. So I do look for like the diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
And every now and then I will come across a candidate like I have to have this person. The story that they have, like how they got to where they are. It's inspiring, and they have an amazing filter to look at data.
How do you find that out? Because if you've got so many people messaging you, it's not. I imagine you're not jumping on a call with them all to find this background story.
No.
So how do you just judge that? What draws you to that diamond?
Yeah. So I interact with a lot of folks. Not just in a professional setting, but in terms of educational, teaching machine learning and all that. So I hear a lot of people, the type of questions they ask.
Yeah.
They're very interesting questions some folks will ask, and some folks will ask like very bookish questions, which they can look up on their own. So likewise on LinkedIn, there are some folks, if I do have the luxury of time, I will look them up. Hey, this person seems interesting, and I see all their background, their education. I definitely do look for that quantitative education. So I don't know. It's like a gut feeling that I've kind of developed over the time.
And I assume that comes with practice as well.
Yeah, and I interact with a lot of folks day to day at work, so I can kind of tell who is telling something they Googled, or who's genuinely into this sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I do get a good bunch who contact me, like a good bunch of candidates. But there's a few that stand out. But we do also use we have also used recruiters who will go.
Yeah.
And they also find very interesting candidates, really special ones. So I think that's a great way of getting great candidates. We also look into boot camps.
Okay, nice. Which is a new thing to the industry.
Yeah. So we've hired a few from boot camps.
Very nice.
And they've done exceptionally well.
Yeah. I guess from there, I say boot camps is a new thing. It's newish, I would say. It's probably it's been around for some time now. There's obviously big ones like Galvanize and things like that. But it's interesting because I think that shows as well. Like anyone who is out there looking to do a boot camp. So I mean, in our I guess the way that we work and support clients is there's an abundance of people coming out of boot camps and master's degrees and kind of PhDs and things. So the value we bring to clients isn't really in that space of like the sort of 1 to 2 years experience, just coming out of masters or just coming out of boot camp, because I'm sure you get reached out to all the time by people like that. But like where our value comes to the table is someone who's been in the space for 4 or 5 years, who's done this project and worked with this tool. Like I need that person on my team. But I think the fact that you do look at boot camps as well, especially for those sort of career starting roles, is amazing. And I think very inspiring to people who might not have anything to do with the data science field right now, but are thinking about getting involved in data science. Doing a boot camp can be worth it if you find the right opportunity and the right sort of leader willing to come take that shot on you. Also, I think you're getting someone that's sort of very moldable there, I guess. Like they've learned the technical fundamentals, which is important, and then you can kind of bring that extra bit of value to them.
Yes.
So
it has its advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. I guess on to the next topic, which is probably our final topic, but the data within the business I've talked about this a couple of times on some of the other previous episodes, but I'm really interested to hear your perspective in it as well, especially because you're the first person within that consulting that we've had on the podcast so far. So you get obviously great insight into how different organizations are leveraging data and how much they value data and what they consider an asset and things like that. So from the beginning of your journey and where data was back in the day with like, I'm sure it was like data warehouses and business intelligence reporting and things like that to now look what we've got. We've got crazy chatbots that are replacing us all apparently. But where do you see it going? Like where have you seen it being? What value do you think it truly brings to a business? Which I'm sure it's an immeasurable amount of value, I imagine. And then where does it go from here? Where do you feel like your role is going to be in 10 years' time?
Yeah, so I mean, data is basically raw material for this technology. Depending on what flavor of data you have, you can build technology that way. So it's definitely meant to make businesses' lives, their day-to-day functioning easier, more effective, and allow them to grow.
Yeah.
Basically, growth is the underlying factor for everything.
Yeah.
So when clients come to us, they're all interested in being a part of this digital transformation.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of companies that really haven't embraced data science so much, or maybe it's not pervasive all throughout. It's in one little area and not in other areas where it can make a huge impact. And people are getting more and more adventurous also. I know, when I first started, it was all about just forecasting or full types of algorithms.
Yeah.
And now it's blown up with like ChatGPT and all the amazing things it can do. But at the same time, it is a black box. A lot of the technologies or the algorithms that we built today that are very exciting, they're all black boxes. We haven't really understood the edge cases or the repercussions or the impact on the psychology of the consumers. Because at the end of the day, it's going to impact the consumer. Whatever growth this business is trying to build, it is for for connecting with consumers. I mean, predominantly, they do have the internal infrastructure that they want to automate, but a lot of it is for connecting with the consumer. So the consumers are going to consume a lot of this AI technology, which is it's interesting, and there's a lot that we can get into in terms of the psychology and impact, and it would have impact in every single aspect of our day-to-day lives.
I guess so. Some people it might sound scary. Some people it might sound exciting. Mm-hmm. I'm one of the exciting crew, I guess. I've set a target of myself to get through a podcast about talking about ChatGPT, but it's obviously the hot topic.
Everyone's tiptoeing around it.
It's funny because it is so amazing, and if you're in the field, you probably see amazing things regularly. But to people like the fact, I think it's just the fact that it's the first sort of mass available thing to this level. So I've been playing around with it, and I was talking to my boss Kevin last week about it, or earlier this week, that these AI tools, people talk about, is it going to replace humans? To me, I just think the only people that are going to get replaced are the ones who don't learn to adapt and use these AI tools. And so I've tried to get a bit of a head start of like learning, because I'm sure, I've been seeing a lot like with ChatGPT particularly. I know Google are trying to get involved in things, but it's how you work with it and how you use the tool and the prompts and the questions and the inputs that you put into these things is what you're going to get out of it. So whoever become, I guess, the early users,
Yeah.
are the ones who are not going to get replaced, because they will be bringing not just their own skill set as a human being to the table, which they've already been doing obviously since the beginning of time, but you now are like humanizing yourself, because you've got this other tool that you can use to increase productivity, to write better. Especially, I'm sure you're engaging with clients and things. You can start to tailor things towards like clients and fact checking yourself and things like that, however you may use it. But yeah, it's a very exciting time, and I know some people probably get a bit scared about all this AI stuff that's coming out, but I think when used correctly and used right, it's nothing but an exciting time.
It's like technology has been from ages. Like we had horses to take us from point A to B. Then we had buggies to take us from A to B. Then the first car, and now we have all these other things. We have planes, different modes of transportation. It's the same with AI. It has evolved, so you need to learn how to drive it. It's not there to replace you, but you need to learn how to drive it and understand that the more complex we get, it requires a more in-depth understanding and appreciation of the power of that technology. Because we haven't fully understood ChatGPT. No. We haven't, and I think it's exciting for now because it's something very new, but it's going to take some time for the actual data scientists to digest it and to actually utilize it. We have clients who bring it up, like, "Hey, can we include ChatGPT in our chatbot?" And
interesting.
Or we've had a couple of interesting requests, but we kind of steer away from it for now because it needs to be. It's kind of like a beta version. It's not fully understood or established yet.
Well, the data they're using, I think, right now still is like pre-2021. And it's just, it's a huge amount of data, but it's tiny compared to, I imagine, what they intend.
And also when you get, other vendors coming up with similar types of technologies, that's when you can really, tap into it. Right now, it's just one. But, with any sort of technology, you need to have many of them to kind of understand and assess and get a feel for what it is and how you can use it.
Yeah. Well, I think that is it. That's the end of our topics and any questions I kind of think of around this. But I just want to say thank you, obviously, for taking the time to come in, and it's great to meet you in person. I'm excited to get this out to the audience. I'm sure a lot of people are going to get a lot of value out of this conversation, hopefully.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
Absolutely. Thank you.